Ilara Vin stood at the edge of the balcony, staring at the glowing city below. Arconis stretched endlessly in every direction, a mix of human skyscrapers and Thalorian towers that shimmered like crystal under the twin suns. She tightened the strap of her ceremonial uniform. Tonight, she would marry Kalen, the Thalorian leader, and her heart was heavy with thoughts she could not share with anyone. It was not love that brought her to this moment. It was duty. Humans and Thalorians had lived side by side for decades, but tensions were rising. A fragile alliance had been agreed upon, but some factions on both sides still doubted the peace. Her marriage was meant to cement trust between the two worlds. Ilara did not want to be here. She had fought in countless missions, negotiated treaties, and faced danger without fear. But this was different. Marrying someone she barely knew, someone from a species whose customs were alien, was more terrifying than any battlefield. The hall where the ceremony would take place was massive. Towers of crystal reflected the light, creating rainbows that danced across the floor. Thalorian guards, tall and imposing, lined the walls, their armor polished to perfection. Humans in formal attire mingled with Thalorian dignitaries, their pale blue skin and glowing eyes standing out against the crowd. Ilara walked slowly down the aisle, her every step echoing in the silence of the hall. Kalen waited at the far end, a figure of calm and authority. His armor was sleek, elegant, and unlike anything human soldiers wore. His face was striking sharp features, glowing violet eyes, and a presence that made even the bravest human diplomat hesitate. She felt a shiver run down her spine, but she forced herself to stand tall. She would do her duty. She had no choice. Kalen bowed slightly as she approached. "Captain Vin," he said in perfect Galactic common, his voice deep but surprisingly gentle. "I am pleased to meet you in this unusual circumstance." Ilara nodded politely. "Kalen, I understand the importance of this union. I will honor it to the best of my ability." His eyes flickered, almost as if he had expected defiance. But he simply inclined his head. "As will I. Duty must come before all else." The ceremony began. Words were exchanged, promises of peace repeated, hands joined. Despite the formality, Ilara noticed something small, a gentleness in Kalen's touch as he took her hand. It was not warmth like a human's, but it was considerate. She kept her thoughts to herself, though, reminding herself that this was not a personal moment. It was politics, duty, survival. After the ceremony, a reception was held in a grand hall above the city. Alien music filled the air, a mix of strange instruments and rhythms that made her head spin. Thalorian nobles watched her closely, some with curiosity, others with quiet judgment. Humans in attendance whispered among themselves, unsure how to act around the Thalorian leader. Ilara and Kalen moved through the crowd together, their expressions calm, almost unreadable. Every step was a careful dance. They nodded at dignitaries, accepted compliments, and smiled politely. But underneath, both felt the weight of expectation pressing down on them. "Are you comfortable, Captain?" Kalen asked quietly as they paused near a window overlooking the city. Ilara hesitated, then shook her head. "Comfortable is not the right word. But I will manage. I must." Kalen's gaze softened, just for a moment. "I understand. We are both bound by duty, but I promise, I will not make this harder than it needs to be." Ilara studied him carefully. There was something in his tone, a sincerity she did not expect. It did not erase her reservations, but it gave her a small measure of relief. Perhaps he would not be cruel or demanding. The night went on, but the city outside had other plans. A sudden alarm blared, red lights flashing across the hall. Thalorian guards moved swiftly, surrounding the guests and guiding them toward secure areas. Ilara's heart pounded. "What is happening?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear creeping in. Kalen's expression hardened. "A faction opposed to our union has struck. They are attempting to destabilize peace by attacking the city." Ilara's mind raced. She had faced attacks before, but this was different. Civilians were in danger. and she was now responsible not just for herself, but for the safety of everyone around her, including Kaelin. "Then we must move," she said. Her training kicked in. She did not hesitate. Even though fear clawed at her chest, Kaelin nodded, and together they moved through hidden corridors, the chaos above them muted by thick walls. Guards followed, but the paths were narrow, and Alara realized they would need to rely on each other more than ever. At one point, a group of attackers tried to block their escape. Kaelin acted instantly, moving with precision and strength that was unlike any human soldier. Alara followed, using her knowledge of human tactics combined with quick thinking to outmaneuver the intruders. For a moment, the two moved as a single unit, their cooperation seamless. When they finally reached a safe chamber beneath the city, Alara allowed herself to breathe. The room was dimly lit, filled with the quiet hum of Thalorian technology. Guards remained outside, but it was the first moment they had alone since the attack began. Kaelin leaned against a wall, catching his breath. "You are skilled," he said simply. "I did not expect such efficiency from a human." Alara's lips twitched in a small, ironic smile. "I did not expect the city to be attacked during my wedding. Yet here we are." He studied her carefully, his violet eyes observing every detail. "You are more than duty-bound. You are capable, courageous, even in the face of fear." Alara's heart skipped, but she looked away. "I am still only human," she said softly. "Courage does not mean I am not afraid." Kaelin nodded, as if acknowledging the truth in her words. There was a pause, a moment of silence in which neither spoke, yet both felt the weight of what had just occurred. They were no longer simply a human diplomat and an alien leader. In the heat of danger, they had seen each other's strengths. A low vibration in the room alerted them to movement outside. The faction had not given up. Alara and Kaelin exchanged a glance. They would have to leave again, navigate through the city together, and ensure that peace was not destroyed before it had a chance to begin. As they prepared to move, Kaelin spoke quietly, almost as if to himself. "Perhaps duty has brought us together, but it seems circumstance demands more than that." Alara did not respond immediately. She only nodded, realizing that this night had already changed everything. Their marriage had begun as a formal obligation, a political necessity. But in the moments of crisis, she had seen the man behind the title, and he had seen her courage. The corridors of the city were a maze, but together, they found a path. Alara's strategic mind and Kaelin's strength made them a formidable team. They rescued trapped civilians, avoided patrols, and slowly made their way to the outskirts of the city. Each step strengthened a bond neither had expected. When they finally reached a hidden transport shuttle, the city behind them burning with chaos, Alara allowed herself a small sigh of relief. Kaelin glanced at her, a faint smile breaking the usual stoic expression. "Tonight, we survived," he said. "Perhaps tomorrow, we will learn to understand each other as more than allies in duty." Alara's lips curved slightly. "Perhaps. But tonight, I am still focused on survival." They boarded the shuttle, and as it lifted off into the night sky, she looked out the window at the city below. The lights shimmered, but the danger was not gone. She realized that her marriage, her duty, was only beginning. What had started as a political arrangement had already grown into a partnership forged under fire. Alara knew that she could not allow herself to feel too much. Not yet. But deep inside, a small spark of curiosity had ignited. Who was Kaelin, really? Could a man of his alien world truly understand her? And more importantly, could she trust herself to let someone in after a lifetime of relying only on her own strength? As the shuttle glided through the twin moon's light, she sat silently beside him, both of them aware that the night's events had changed the course of their lives forever. The marriage that had begun out of duty now faced the test of circumstance, and neither of them knew what would come next. But one thing was certain. Together, they had survived the impossible, and that survival would bind them in ways neither had anticipated. The stars stretched endlessly before them. And for the first time in a long while, Ilara allowed herself to hope not for love, but for understanding, partnership, and perhaps, one day, a choice of her own. The shuttle cut silently through the night sky, leaving the chaos of the city behind. Below them, Arconis glimmered with fire and confusion, while above, the stars were calm and infinite. Ilara sat quietly, her hands clasped in her lap, watching the passing lights. She could feel Kalen's presence beside her, steady, silent, unshakable. He broke the silence first, his voice low and thoughtful. This attack, it was not random. Someone wanted to test our resolve. Someone wanted to see if humans and Thalorians could truly work together. Ilara nodded, her mind racing. I saw the way they moved. They were coordinated, trained, and ruthless. Whoever planned this knew exactly how to strike fear and chaos. Kalen's violet eyes met hers, their glow faint in the dim shuttle light. And yet, here we are, alive, together. His tone was not boastful, only factual, but Ilara sensed something deeper, respect, perhaps even admiration. She felt a flicker of warmth at his words but pushed it aside. She reminded herself, this was Kalen, the Thalorian leader. Duty came first. Always. Emotions could wait. The shuttle landed at a secure outpost far from the city. Guards met them immediately, guiding them into a fortified command center. Screens displayed images of the attack. Chaos still spreading in parts of the city. Officials from both species worked feverishly to restore order, their faces tense, voices hurried. Kalen turned to her. I need your advice, Ilara. Your insight into human behavior, how we respond under pressure, will help us predict the next move of this faction. Ilara felt a surge of determination. This was her realm, her expertise. We need to identify their leaders and understand their goal. Are they seeking power, revenge, or disruption? Every move they make will tell us something about their plan. Kalen nodded, listening intently. Your analysis is precise. I underestimated the value of human intuition. Ilara blinked at the compliment. She was not used to being praised, especially by someone like him. We each have our strengths, she said carefully. Perhaps, Kalen replied, but your strengths are extraordinary. I will remember this tonight. For a moment, the weight of formality lifted, replaced by a quiet acknowledgement of mutual respect. They were still strangers in many ways, yet the shared danger had formed a connection neither expected. The command center hummed with activity as they worked together, piecing together intelligence. Ilara guided Kalen through human tactics, showing how civilians might react to fear, where attackers were likely to strike next, and how to protect key infrastructure. Kalen, in turn, taught her Thalorian combat strategies, ways to anticipate opponents' movements, even predicting them before they acted. Ilara marveled at his mind. Kalen was not just strong and commanding. He was clever, precise, and patient. He explained things without arrogance, and despite the vast differences between their species, she found herself learning quickly. Hours passed, and exhaustion settled in. They took a brief moment of rest in a quiet corner, away from the monitors and the constant chatter of officials. You handled the evacuation well, Kalen said softly. You saved many lives tonight. Ilara shook her head. We both did. I only did what was necessary. I did not act for praise. Necessary? He repeated, his tone thoughtful. Perhaps. But necessary does not diminish courage. She turned to look at him. His face was calm, but his violet eyes held a weight of responsibility she could not fully understand. Courage is not absence of fear, she said. It's acting despite it. Kalen's expression softened, a small gesture that seemed almost human. You are remarkably human, Ilara. I think I may have underestimated your species. Her lips twitched with a small smile. And I may have underestimated Thalorians. They shared a brief, quiet laugh. It was the first time the air between them felt less like duty and more like understanding. For the first time, Alara allowed herself to notice Kalen, not just as a leader or as an alien, but as a person, someone capable of thought, humor, and even empathy. Their peace was short-lived. An alarm rang sharply through the outpost. Screens flickered with new images, another attack, this time on a civilian transport heading toward the city's outskirts. Alara's heart pounded. "We have to stop them," she said, standing immediately. Kalen was already moving, his form fluid and confident. "Then we move together. We will not let them succeed." They boarded a fast response shuttle, weapons secured, minds focused. The attack was even more coordinated than before. But Alara and Kalen had learned from the previous encounter. They anticipated the moves of the assailants, dodging traps, warning the transport crew, and using non-lethal measures to incapacitate attackers. During the operation, Kalen protected Alara at every turn, moving with strength that was almost beyond belief. Alara saved several civilians, guiding them to safety, her tactical mind working perfectly under pressure. Each time they succeeded, the bond between them grew stronger. Not romantic yet, but a connection born of mutual reliance and trust. After the transport was safe, they landed at a secure Thalorian facility. Exhaustion weighed on both of them, but there was a strange satisfaction in their eyes. They had survived together, and the city and its people were safer because of their teamwork. Kalen turned to her, voice softer than before. "Tonight, you were impressive. Not just in skill, but in your spirit. You do not give up." Alara looked at him, surprised by the sincerity. "We cannot give up, not when so many depend on us." He studied her closely, as if seeing her for the first time without the formal barriers of politics and ceremony. "You are brave, and you are human. That combination is rare." For a moment, Alara felt something stir inside her: curiosity, respect, perhaps even admiration. She quickly pushed the thought aside. Duty came first. She could not allow herself to become distracted by emotions. Not now. Over the following days, Alara and Kalen worked closely to uncover the faction behind the attacks. They interrogated captured operatives, analyzed data streams, and coordinated defenses. During this time, they learned more about each other. Alara discovered Kalen's childhood had been strict, filled with expectations and lessons in leadership. He had been groomed to lead his people, to make decisions no one else could, and to carry the weight of a species on his shoulders. She realized that his calm and controlled demeanor came from years of training and sacrifice. Kalen, in turn, learned about Alara's past as a soldier. Her courage was not born from a desire for recognition, but from a deep sense of responsibility. She had faced countless dangers, yet she never let fear dictate her actions. He began to admire her not just as an ally, but as a human being of remarkable strength. One evening, as they reviewed intelligence in a quiet room, Kalen spoke unexpectedly. "Alara, may I ask, why do humans continue to fight, even when the odds seem impossible?" Alara paused, considering her answer. "Because survival is not enough. Humans fight for more than themselves. We fight for our people, our home, and sometimes, even for those we barely know. Fear is always present, but it does not stop us from acting." Kalen listened intently, absorbing every word. "I see now. Your courage. It is not just skill. It is heart. Something we Thalorians admire but do not always understand." Alara felt a strange warmth. This was not romance, at least not yet, but it was a recognition of shared values, an acknowledgement that despite their differences, they could understand each other. Days turned into a week, and the threat of the faction remained. They discovered the faction intended to assassinate key leaders from both species to reignite war. Alara and Kalen planned a mission to intercept them, relying entirely on their cooperation. The operation was tense and dangerous. They navigated hostile territory, relying on each other's strengths. Kalen's alien agility and strength combined with Alara's tactical mind made them nearly unstoppable. They saved hostages, neutralized threats, and prevented what could have been a disastrous escalation into war. When the mission was over, they returned to the facility, exhausted but triumphant. Alara finally allowed herself to speak freely. "Kalen, I did not expect to feel this. Working with you. Relying on you. It changes things." Kalen nodded, understanding immediately. "I feel the same. I do not know what this means yet. But I know that duty brought us together. And now, something else grows." Alara smiled faintly, acknowledging the truth. She could not name it. Yet trust, respect, perhaps the first seed of admiration, but she knew that something profound had begun. As night fell on the facility, they stood side by side, looking at the stars. The events of the past week had changed them both. What had begun as a marriage of duty was slowly transforming. They had seen each other at their best and worst, under fire and fear. And in that crucible, something new had emerged, a bond neither had anticipated. Alara realized that the journey ahead would not be easy. They were still strangers in many ways, bound by duty and expectation. But for the first time, she allowed herself to wonder what could happen if duty and choice walked together. Kalen glanced at her, sensing the thought in her mind. "We have faced much together, Alara. Perhaps, in time, we will find that duty is only the beginning of something greater." Alara nodded, feeling a spark of hope. "Perhaps. But for now, we continue. Together." And so, as the twin suns set over Arconis, Alara and Kalen prepared for the next challenge. The faction remained at large, and peace was still fragile. Yet, in the shared moments of danger and cooperation, they had discovered something neither had expected. That even in a marriage of duty, bonds could be formed, trust could grow, and perhaps one day choices could be made. The night was quiet, but the journey was far from over. The city of Arconis was still on edge. Although the initial attacks had been contained, the faction behind the chaos remained at large, plotting their next move. Alara and Kalen returned to the command center, determined to end the threat once and for all. Neither spoke of fear, they had no time for it, but both were aware of the stakes. Failure meant not just political disaster, but the loss of countless innocent lives. Kalen studied the maps and intelligence reports carefully, his violet eyes scanning every detail. "They are organized," he said, "and they understand our weaknesses. But they underestimate one thing: our ability to adapt." Alara nodded, her mind racing with strategies. "They rely on fear to control people. If we remove that fear, we remove their power. We need a plan that protects civilians while drawing out their leaders." Kalen inclined his head. "Then we act together. As partners." The word struck Alara. "Partners," she repeated quietly, almost tasting it. In her mind, they had already become partners through necessity, through danger, and through trust, but saying it aloud made it real. The operation began at dawn. Alara and Kalen led a combined human-Thalorian force into the heart of the city, where the faction had taken control of a strategic command hub. Their movements were precise, calculated, every step synchronized. Alara's tactical mind and Kalen's alien instincts formed a perfect combination, guiding the soldiers and civilians alike. They faced ambushes, traps, and hidden explosives, but together, they overcame every obstacle. Kalen protected Alara when danger struck, his strength and agility unmatched. She, in turn, directed the humans with clarity, ensuring no one panicked and every move counted. At one point, they were cornered in a narrow street, surrounded by faction fighters. Alara felt a flash of fear, brief, sharp, but she suppressed it, drawing on every lesson she had learned in battle. Kalen stood beside her, eyes glowing faintly, ready to act. "Follow my lead," he whispered. With a signal, they moved in unison. Kalen used his strength to disable the attackers, while Alara flanked them from the side, her precise strikes disarming and incapacitating the remaining threats. Within minutes, the street was clear, and the civilians who had been hiding emerged, their relief palpable. Kalen looked at her, a faint smile breaking his usual stoic expression. You are remarkable, Ilara. Not just in skill, but in courage. Ilara felt her chest tighten at the words. We survived together. Courage is shared. He nodded, understanding the meaning behind her words. They had relied on each other, trusted each other, and survived together. In those moments, duty had transformed into something deeper. As they approached the faction's command hub, they discovered that the leaders were human and Thalorian dissidents who had conspired for power. The confrontation was tense. The faction leaders underestimated the unity between Ilara and Kalen, assuming that political duty would keep them from acting decisively. They were wrong. Ilara stepped forward, voice firm. Your plans end here. You threaten innocent lives and peace alike. Stand down, or face the consequences. Kalen mirrored her stance, his presence towering and commanding. Your threats are meaningless against those who act as one. We are stronger together, and we will not be broken. The faction hesitated. The determination in their eyes, the unity between human and Thalorian, was something they had not anticipated. Slowly, one by one, they surrendered, realizing that their cause had no chance against the combined resolve of Ilara and Kalen. When the last of the faction leaders was secured, the city began to breathe again. Civilians and soldiers alike cheered, grateful for the bravery of those who had saved them. Yet, amidst the celebration, Ilara and Kalen remained focused, ensuring every threat was neutralized before allowing themselves a moment of relief. Hours later, they stood alone on a balcony overlooking the city. The sun rose, casting golden light across the towers, reflecting off the crystal-like structures that marked Thalorian architecture. The city was safe, for now, and the fragile peace remained intact. Kalen turned to her, his expression softer than she had ever seen. Ilara, this week has shown me much about humans, and about you. You are extraordinary. I underestimated the depth of your courage, your intelligence, and your spirit. Ilara felt a warmth in her chest, a feeling she had not allowed herself to name. Kalen, I did not expect to find understanding or respect here. Especially not from you. But I see now that duty brought us together, and perhaps something more has grown. He stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. Something more. Yes, I have felt it too. This connection. It is more than obligation. It is trust, partnership, and something I cannot ignore. Ilara hesitated, thoughts racing. She had always believed that duty came before all else. Emotions were a risk, a distraction, but the past days had shown her that trust, courage, and understanding could emerge even in the midst of duty. Perhaps this connection was not a distraction, but a strength. She began, but Kalen placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You do not have to speak it yet, he said softly. Let actions show us the way. We have faced fire, danger, and fear together. We have survived. And in surviving, we have learned what it means to rely on each other. Ilara nodded slowly, feeling a sense of clarity. They had started as strangers, bound by political necessity. But shared danger and mutual respect had transformed them. Duty had brought them together. But choice would define their future. In the following weeks, their partnership continued to grow. Ilara and Kalen coordinated efforts to rebuild parts of the city damaged in the attacks. They trained human and Thalorian forces to work together, combining strategies and tactics from both species. With every shared task, their understanding deepened. Ilara noticed small things, Kalen's subtle humor, the way he remembered details about humans, his willingness to listen to her opinions. Kalen observed Ilara's dedication, intelligence, and compassion. Both began to see each other not as political figures, but as individuals of remarkable character. One evening, as they walked through a quiet garden built on a terrace overlooking the city, Kalen spoke softly. Ilara, I must admit, I did not expect to feel this way. Duty was meant to bind us, But something else has grown. Something I cannot ignore. Alara looked at him, the stars reflecting in her eyes. I have felt it too. I was afraid at first. Afraid that my feelings would interfere with duty. But perhaps this is not interference. Perhaps it is part of what makes us stronger. Thanks for watching. My friend. I was not my feelings severed. I have felt it first. Kaelin took her hand gently, a gesture that no longer felt formal but personal. Then let us choose together. Not just duty, but trust, partnership, and, perhaps one day, something more. Alara smiled. A real smile that reached her eyes. Together, then, we will face the future as partners. And whatever comes next, we will face it united. The city below was calm, a stark contrast to the chaos of the past week. But Alara knew that challenges would continue to arise. There would always be threats, political intrigues, and dangers unknown. Yet for the first time, she felt a sense of hope, not just for the city or the alliance, but for herself and for the connection she had found with Kaelin. In the weeks that followed, the bond between them deepened. They shared quiet moments of laughter, strategies for governance, and even simple, personal stories of their pasts. Alara learned of Kaelin's love for ancient Thalorian literature, his fascination with human history, and his moments of doubt despite his strength. Kaelin learned of Alara's childhood on a distant human colony, her first missions as a soldier, and the reasons she fought so fiercely for justice and peace. These shared stories created understanding, breaking down the barriers of species, duty, and expectation. They were no longer just human and Thalorian, diplomat and leader. They were two individuals who had chosen to trust each other, to rely on each other, and to face the future side by side. Finally, the day came when the alliance was formally recognized as secure. Both human and Thalorian leaders praised Alara and Kaelin for their courage and leadership. The marriage, once seen as a political necessity, was now celebrated as a partnership that had saved countless lives and ensured lasting peace. That evening, Alara and Kaelin stood together on a terrace, overlooking the city lights. The stars above mirrored the city below, vast, bright, and full of possibilities. Kaelin turned to her, violet eyes glowing softly. We began this journey out of duty, but I now see that duty was only the beginning. Choice has brought us here, and it is choice that will guide us forward. Alara squeezed his hand. And I am ready to face that future, whatever it holds. Not because I must, but because I choose to. Because we choose together. Kaelin's expression softened into a smile that was rare for a Thalorian leader, one that was entirely personal. Then let us step into tomorrow as partners, in duty and in trust, and perhaps in something more. Alara nodded, feeling a warmth that was new but welcome. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that duty had led to a deeper connection, one built on respect, courage, and mutual choice. What had started as a marriage out of obligation had transformed into a partnership of equals, capable of facing any challenge together. As the twin moons rose in the night sky, casting silver light over Arconis, Alara and Kaelin stood together, hand in hand, ready to face whatever the future held. The city was safe, the alliance strong, and the bond between them had grown beyond duty into something real, something chosen, something powerful. The journey that had begun in obligation had ended in understanding, respect, and trust. And for Alara and Kaelin, that was just the beginning.